Hello and welcome to Belfast Talk Straight on the announcement of the new England captain, the England's new managing director of cricket. My old mate Rob Key was Lords this morning doing the announcement along with announcing Ben Stokes as the England captain. John Norman sitting there at Lords in the press box. How was Keezy? What was his main topic of questions? And was there any sort of big lines come out of the new managing director of cricket?
Well, I tell you what, mate. The last hour and a half has just been so refreshing because you know Rob Key better than pretty much everyone, and it was just so good to hear somebody who just said it as it is.
Yeah.
There was no second guessing, there was no politics, there was no kind of protecting, there was no. It was just like, this is the situation, this is what I need to do, and this is what I'm going to try and do. And look, he spoke very honestly about the decision to give Ben Stokes the captaincy, and it'd be really interesting to hear what you have to say because I actually asked him a question on behalf of something that you've been saying. But look, he fronted up, he answered all the questions, and it just feels like the decision to appoint Rob Key is a good one. Certainly in terms of first impressions, which are important. He seems to have eased into the role. He seems to sit with the role quite comfortably. And yeah, the big news, I suppose, because I don't think anybody watching this really cares too much about Rob Key as managing director. It's about Ben Stokes as captain. England's new Test captain is Ben Stokes, and that's been formally announced today. But well, let's start with the positive, shall we? The man, the player. What kind of captain is Ben Stokes going to be for England?
I think he'll be a very, very good captain. The one thing I'll say about Ben Stokes is, and I say this quite a bit whenever I'm commentating on him or talking about him, he's a very good situation player, whether it's with red ball or with white ball. He understands when he goes into bat what he needs, what it needs at that specific time to then put his own stamp on the game. Whether he needs to come in at fifth gear straight away, a bang, like he did at Cape Town, all them, the many moons ago when we did it on Talk Sport to set the win up, opening the batting last year in the middle of COVID or the year before with Josh Butler at Old Trafford to set the game up, or to bat a long time and give himself a time in the game. Remember that famous game at Headingley where he batted 90 odd balls for two and then still got England over the line 140 with a wonderful innings. So when they say he's a good situation player, that for me makes him have a good cricket brain and would make him a thinker and a good captain or make good decisions with a captain. From a captaincy point of view, you're only as good as the team that you have. I didn't think Joe Root was a bad captain. I just thought he had some players who had some baggage and made some bad decisions at the back end of Joe's time. So for me, I think as long as Ben's got 100% focus on the job in hand, which is to captain England, leaves all the other stuff, the baggage behind, because there's a lot of stuff comes with the England captaincy. Pressure taken off him by managing director of cricket, new coach, as well as other coaches to run this sort of administration side and not bother Ben on that front. Then I think we'll have a good leader. I've got no doubt that Ben will be a good captain, but it's about the team and it's about getting the ducks in a row and making sure that the team have got confidence, they're performing, and that will come through hopefully in Ben's captaincy, because if the team continues to play the way they did in the Ashes and the West Indies, it's Mike Brealey's birthday today. Mike Brealey wouldn't be able to captain this side and have the win percentage ratio that he would. So I think it comes down to the team. He'll motivate them well. He's very, very well respected in the dressing room. He's got passion. He's got motivation. And he does. I think he does make good decisions when he's on a cricket field, whether it's with bat or ball in hand. So I think first impressions of the decision, I think it's a good one. I just hope there's not too much pressure on his game when it comes to the white ball, the 2020, and then potentially IPL further down the line. That could sort of change or sway the focus of being England Test captain. But it's a real honour. I'm proud of him. I'm chuffed to bits for him, his family, and everybody that's associated with making the boy become a fantastic young man. And fingers crossed, this is the next development in Ben Stokes' career and life.
There's a but coming though, isn't there? And the but is one I asked Rob Key, and I said to him quite honestly, he has a lot of respect for you, And I said to him, look, Steve Harmison has come on out and said he's concerned that the additional workload may be a problem, and it's something we're going to be a little bit worried about in terms of Ben Stokes. There's another guy that lives up in Durham, your old mate, Steve Harmison. Now, Steve's obviously, and suffered from mental health issues. We saw Ben last year step away from the game. Harmy is of the position that there is a risk here. There's a risk element to asking a guy that has struggled in recent past to essentially overburden him. As in your job, is that something that you had to consider before deciding to speak to Ben? And was there any reassurance that Ben sought from you in terms of just making sure things are in place to enable him to do the best possible job that he can?
No, look, I think Harmy's absolutely right, actually. You do have to, and he would know better than anyone else about these types of things. But to be honest with you, when I look at it, and when I've been in here, a week now, and I've started to look, and you start trying to find out what's been going on and why. And what I would say is that the last 2 years for this England team has been as tough as ever before. All these bubbles, I don't think we probably underestimate, or I certainly did as well. I have so much respect really for Ashley Giles, Chris Silverwood, people like that, who have spent most of their time trying to keep the show on the road, who have spent most of their time trying to make sure that players are okay in bubbles, that where you can eat your breakfast, can you do this? You get into these roles, as I have, to be able to try and win a few games of cricket, not to have to do all that stuff. And I do think that we're going into a new era now with this type of stuff. Like the rest of the country, we're all trying to move on from COVID, all of those types of things. And that will help those mental pressures on Ben Stokes, on every single England cricketer. I reckon every single player would have suffered in some form to different degrees throughout the last 2 years. And now we've got to move on from that. We've just got, our focus has been all about things like bubbles. Do we want to go somewhere? Do we want to do this? COVID, testing, all that type of stuff. We've got to move on from that now. And our focus has got to be, how do we win games of cricket?
Is it fair to say that most of us are thinking that they'll giving Ben the captaincy, and by the way, I can't think of a better decision. It's not like there's a plan B as far as I can see, although Rob Key said that there was. But is there a feeling that, look, short term, I think we can all see the benefits of Ben Stokes taking over the captaincy, but it's the long term effect, the week in, week out. It's okay this summer, but look, we've got a World T20 in Australia in November, tour of Pakistan, which is going to take it out of them. And then, of course, next year, you've got an Ashes. This Australian team are going to come to England. Ben Stokes, is he really going to be the first captain in 20 years to lose an Ashes at home? Well, the bookies would say yes. And then, of course, there's a World Cup in India, with England being the reigning champions. And, of course, it was back here that Ben Stokes did what he did with the bat to get England up to a position where they could win that 50-over campaign. So he ain't going nowhere with 50-over cricket. It's not going anywhere in 2020 cricket. And Rob Key can say that Test cricket is a priority for now. It is. He's the new captain. I mean, the problem is not necessarily this month. It's next year.
Yeah, 100%, and that's the problem that everybody will see. It's not. I don't think it's somebody that's going to come out of the woodwork and have a good idea. Oh, by the way, you've got to watch his workloads. I think you've got to manage him mentally as well, because somebody that suffered, and openly, honestly said about the suffering I had from a mental point of view. That never goes away. Never goes away. You help manage it through talking to people, through medication. That will never leave Ben. But I think there are people that do thrive on the pressure. There are people who demand it from themselves to be in the game all the time and in the moment all the time, and actually think he likes it, which is a good sign, a positive sign. I think when you talk about the likes of Ian Botham and Andrew Flintoff, when they had the captaincy, it's a different game now. It is a different game now. There's a lot more help. There are a hell of a lot more people involved now that can help to take the burden, the pressure off you. The biggest thing from Ben's point of view, is getting the right coach and having the right coach in place, somebody that can manage the group and set an environment, as well as sort of keep Ben going in the right direction and on track. I actually think there's only one winner for that now. Now you've got Ben, and that's Gary Kirsten. I really do. I think Gary Kirsten's. If you look at the two big jobs that Gary Kirsten did, he did it with South Africa, took them to #1 in the world. He did it with India, took them to #1 in the world. Did them with two sort of big characters as captains. Graham Smith, powerful leader, powerful captain. MS Dhoni, again, powerful leader, powerful captain. Gary Kirsten just sat underneath that, let the captain express himself. But I would imagine he was driving not only the environment, but the ship and the road, that, just keeping everything on track and let the leader lead, and just picking everything up just from behind it. And I think I look at the other candidates that are potentially in that, in the coaching roles job. And I think Gary Kirsten and Ben Stokes would be a nice little fit. So watch the space. I'm not sure when the applications are done by, whether Graham Ford, again, another character who is quite sort of a backseat, but seems to have a good authority and authoritarian, because Ben Stokes is going to need that. He's going to need somebody to lean on. He's going to need somebody to trust, and he's going to need somebody with a very, very calm and influence and emotion. I look at my telly at this minute in time and just have a quick glance, and Justin Langer's on my telly, and I'm not sure Justin Langer would be a good fit for England with Ben Stokes, because he seems to be the one that wants to sort of up and at him, drive the culture and drive everything going. I think you let Ben Stokes lead, and you just help him or nudge him along the way every now and again. If you feel as though, as a coach, you feel as though he's going off track. The one-day stuff, the white ball stuff, I'd just play him in major tournaments. I really would. I'd play him in major tournaments. Give him a role, a simple role, with bat and ball, and play him in major tournaments. Try and convince him not to go to the IPL next year by offering him financial reward if that's the case. And I'd play him in major tournaments. No point in going to Holland. No point in going and playing in these sort of bilateral series. Play him in major tournaments and let him captain the England cricket team, and I think you'll get you'll get rewarded. And it's a tough gig. England have won 1 in 17, 1 in 18, so they've got to somehow stem that tide. But I'm pleased he's got the job now, and England can move forward with Ben at the helm.
And lastly, look, we're going to be doing this kind of short, sharp shock shows on the YouTube channel. Whenever there's a breaking story, we'll do something like this. But we're going to keep it brief. Also, you've got to be on Hawksby and Jacobs on TalkSport in about 10 minutes. Jimmy Anderson, Stuart Broad will be back. Stokes wants it. Key wants it. They want it. If you're a New Zealand skipper or fan or player, this is the worst news you could possibly be getting today, isn't it? Ben Stokes is captain, and Jimmy Anderson and Stuart Broad back in the side.
Yeah, they could arguably say one of their own's coming back to captain and come to haunt England. Ben was obviously born in New Zealand. Mum and dad, family, very much strong links with New Zealand. And Ben loves that country. You see by every chance he gets, he goes back to mum and dad, and he loves that part of the world. So yes, I think it is bad news for New Zealand. Good news for England that Broad and Anderson are going to be back involved. I think the experiment of trying to see what they could do without them didn't work. And the biggest thing I felt for Joe Root that was going to happen during that Caribbean series, and it did happen, was the control of session. And what I mean by that is the two bowlers that bowl at the start of every session give you control as a captain, because then you can go through the session when you're in charge. If you've got two bowlers that are going 6 and over for the first 6 overs of every session, then all of a sudden you're clawing things back. You're not controlling the game. You're reacting to what's happening. One thing Broad and Anderson will do, or Broad or Anderson will do, whichever way you go, they'll give you control from one end in that session, and then you can then manipulate the session the way you want to go, whether you're Parkinson players, because I think Parkinson might have to play now if you're going back to Broad and Anderson. But I think it's the right call to have Broad back involved, and this be Anderson's last year. Give him a benefit year, go around the traps, because he will not let you down. He will not disappoint. And if Jimmy stays fit for 5 test matches throughout this summer, he gives England a good chance of winning. And that's not rocket science. What happens in Pakistan or what happens overseas, look, we worry about that further down the line. We've got to start winning cricket matches. And if you win cricket matches, you get on a roll, you can play well away from home. If you're consistently losing cricket matches, when it's difficult away from home, then it becomes 10 times, 10 times worse. So first and foremost, pick your best 11 for Lords. Your captain goes out in front, and if Broad and Anderson are in the best 11, you pick them both.
Brilliant. Harmy, you get out of here. Thanks for watching. Get your questions in. We'll answer them either on this show or on another one. Essentially, we do a lot of shows together. Harmy, brilliant stuff. Chat soon.